topic 7, and it is titled Studying and Writing Reports on Conflicts, Useful Tips. Even though the arrangement of Nigeria necessitates that the course be approached essentially from the practical perspective in terms of using students to build a future for the country, a future of our dream, in terms of using the course as a socialization process of a new Nigeria. Because the understanding or the assumption is that you, as future leaders, should be well grounded and prepared, grounded in terms of knowing Nigeria fully well and using the knowledge to empower you for future public service responsibilities. The first that you need to know is that the course is as well an academic exercise. And because it's an academic exercise, it has to be so treated. And the treatment we're giving to it is to empower you now through the use of skills, to empower your competencies in the particular area of formulating and developing reports and conflicts. So the first essential requirement is having the knowledge background, having the required knowledge background, having the required understanding of what knowledge of what conflict is, of what management is, of what community management is, of what citizenship is, of what education is, and of what citizenship education is. And how do we do this? We do this through familiarity with literature, ideas, and knowledge and understanding. And that we have been able to do by engaging ourselves with very important conceptual interrogation and analysis of the embedded concepts, just as earlier mentioned. So that is the first requirement. It's like somebody wanting to build a house. You first have an idea of the type of house that you want to build. You translate your idea into a plan. But having the idea is a serious challenge. That becomes a function of your exposure, how exposed that you are. So the extent of your versatility and exposure is very, very important. And through reading, we achieve this through reading. And I don't think really should be a problem for students. I want to assume. So, the first requirement is the knowledge background. This is very, very important. It will tell you what conflict is. It will tell you its various dimensions. It provides further information as to the type of conflict that you are studying, and gives you as well the justification. There must be justification for everything. There must be goal. The justification in turn provides the goal, understanding of what the goal is. What do you seek to achieve by studying this conflict? What do you seek to achieve by studying or knowing or trying to know its many dimensions? All these are critical. All these are critical. The next stage is that of causes and effects. That shows in conflict. You must interrogate further. What helps to explain it? What helps to explain its existence? These are the causes. And these causes, in turn, are into two categories. The causes of conflicts are in two categories. The first one we call remote causes of conflicts, and two, immediate causes of conflicts. There's one thing about life. Life is a product of its experience. Life is a product. Some will even say is the outcome of its experience. Nothing just happens. Something causes something to happen. And when things happen, or when something happens, usually it produces an effect, or it produces effects. So as a student of complementary assisted education, you owe yourself that duty of knowing, having determined the case study or the type of conflict, to now ask yourself important questions that will help you understand that case study very well. And what is this important question? It's just an answer to the question. What are the causes or likely causes of this my choice of conflict? This thing that happened. Why did it happen? Why did it happen? When did it happen? What are the consequences and effects of it as an occurrence? In this case, as a social occurrence or as a social event of study. History becomes very important here. History becomes important because of the fact that life sometimes takes the turn of a circle. Just as I often said, that history repeats itself. But it's not important, or that we have respect to ensure that bad history does not repeat itself. Conflicts, we should not allow it to repeat themselves because of the negative consequences, because of the bad effects on society, and particularly the attainment and sustenance of political stability or political order. So, what are the causes? What are the remote causes? What has been the experience of history? How is history related? Or how can these causes be placed within the context of perspective of history? This is very important. And the study of that should in turn enable the knowledge and understanding of the nature and character of these conflicts. In other words, we need to place these conflicts as contemporary events within the relevant historical framework of knowledge. Then you ask yourself some important questions. This conflict has happened. Is it the first time that it's happening? When did it first happen? When did it first happen? So the issue of time is very important. And this is the factor of history here. When it happened then, what are the responsible factors? What are those things that enabled its existence or its occurrence then? Are the same factors or the same points still valid to today? You need to know. And you need to know for the purpose of comparison. What happened then and what is happening now, or what has happened now? You need to place them side by side. And you need that for two reasons. To know the differences, first, to know differences between them. And second, to know the similarities between them. But we can even talk of the third one. To know the consequences arising from the study or from the knowledge of the differences and of their similarities. You need to try to ask important questions. Who are the leaders? Who are the dramatic personnel? What type of agitations are embedded in it? And how have the agitations, supported the recent or the occurrences of these conflicts recently? This is very important. The immediate causes also need to be known. Dissatisfaction takes time, but when it's to be exhibited, there are always immediate and propelling factors. As students of conflicts, you need to know this. You need to know as well whether these conflicts have been the results or consequences of poor implementation of the existing agreements in relation to their management. You need to know. You need to know because knowledge of it is that it will shape or influence the current recommendation that you are likely to have for it. This is very, very important. Very, very important. Now, because of the fact that we are not likely to be the first person that will have an engagement on this conflict, you need to consult literature and see. When I say literature, not necessarily academic books, but similar reports, either on the subject matter or related subject matter. Those reports, to what extent are they similar? What are their contents? You ask yourself important questions. What are their contents? Two, how will their contents enhance the knowledge of what you are about to do? What do you stand to gain? And what as well do you stand to lose? What about the time? available? What about the resources available? Time is very important. Time in life is very, very important. Some reports are within timelines. You must ask yourself, oh, this choice of study of conflict that I want to go engage into, can I finish it within the timeline, within the deadline? You must ask yourself that particular question. You must ask yourself about the sacrifice that you need to make to be able to meet the deadline. Very, very important. Now, what about the writing proper, the report proper? Usually a report is created in terms of its contents. And what are these contents? You might, depending on what the formats of their submission expect from you, to chapterize them, to paginate them. But the most important thing is that you ensure that you write them well. Simple English, readable handwriting. If at all you are put to a process, the editorial job must be very neat. These are the essential tips to start with. Now, the first part of that content will now be the introduction. Introduction. What is this conflict like? Very important for you to address. Is it political? Is it economic? What is the history like? Is it that it's just first happening, or that it has happened in the past? You need to contextualize this. You need that way to identify other elements, other things that make the conflicts, actually for multi-dimensional ones. Some conflicts are not entirely within a descriptive category. Yes, you say it's political, but in it are elements of religion, economy, society, culture, etc., etc. Because man is an integrated element of society that he belongs to. He acquires many characteristics and traits of society. Well, what in essence we're saying here, there is a kind of interpenetration between and among the kinds of conflicts. All these you must be able to study and study accurately well, and articulate them clearly well as well. This is very, very important. Conflict also, very important to emphasize, is being determined as well by its properties and instruments of execution. Properties, characteristics, and instruments of execution. Very, very important. Is it the type of conflict that is between and among individuals? The type of conflict between and among groups? Or the type of conflict between and among nation states? All these require proper determination and delineation. Very, very important. Very, very important. Very, very important. When we say nature of conflicts, some conflicts just come, fizzle out, only for them to come back again. You must determine, you must be able to know whether or not that conflict of your study falls under this category. You have responsibility to do that. You must know the causes for public policy consequence or need. This choice of conflict, you must be able to know the causes, the variables that are in between them, and the relationship between and among them, to the extent of you saying or justifying them as being responsible for the occurrence. Very, very important. There is as well the duration of conflict. Duration is very important. It gives indication about its potency, particularly the potency of the instruments of execution. And again, in relation to the extent of the damage in terms of destructions. Very, very important. And the effects. You need as well to clearly articulate the effects of these conflicts. Some economic conflicts have political effects. Some political conflicts have economic effects. All these require proper articulation and neatness of submission. Proper articulation and neatness of submission. You owe yourself that intellectual responsibility. Now, recommendations. The last is recommendations. The important thing to emphasize here is that any study is not for any study's sake. Any study of a phenomenon, any study of a subject matter is not for the study's sake. It is as a result of the fact that there's a problem. And again, the fact for that the problem requires a solution. And we talk of solutions through recommendations. And while making your recommendations, you must be very careful to the extent that we should see the recommendations emerging from the body of your work. There should be a relationship between the conflict studied, the dimension, their effects and their causes, and the recommendations that you are making. And ensure that the recommendations are of public policy significance, targeted, and that is the only way the recommendations the only way in which the recommendation can go beyond the immediate environment. Of course, a conflict in a particular area can as well happen in other areas. So that does not happen. That is why you must ensure adequacy of knowledge and of the fact that there is a problem in the society that requires solution. Let me, at this juncture, review all that we have been saying from topic 1 through 2 to topic 7. Let me provide a summary as a way of rounding up. And that summary is to take the form of the necessity for the course, GNS202. Nigeria is peculiar. Nigeria is peculiar. Peculiar in the sense that it is distinct from other federal systems or political systems of the world. Of course, there could be shared commonalities with others, but the uniqueness of Nigeria in terms of the specific nature and character of its government and politics require appreciation. And since it takes the appearance that, oh, the older generations have disappointed, that is the argument or allegation, what now becomes of you, the new generation, that the management administration of Nigeria will be saddled with in the future? One, it emphasizes the fact that understanding is critical. We must seek to understand ourselves. We must seek to understand ourselves. And the first essential requirement is tolerance. Is tolerance. Nigeria is an open system of government. Open in the sense that it has no affinity to any religion. It's not a theocracy. Nigeria has no formal religion. So which means that there is one understanding of God. There is one understanding of God. Whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you are a traditionalist. God is about the idea of a supreme being who takes absolute authority over all that he has created, who gives and controls when he gives faith. You must have that understanding. You must as well have the understanding that we live to exist for ourselves. You don't live for your own alone. You live because of others. That means that there's an understanding of the fact that we should be each other brother's keeper. Very, very, very important. Very, very important. Tolerance brings about understanding. Understanding brings about prosperity. Why? Because understanding brings about peace. And we can only have prosperity and development in an environment of peace and peaceful coexistence. Very, very important to emphasize. And it is very important to emphasize that nobody is saying that a situation without conflict is or should be the absolute desire. Nobody's saying that. In fact, some have argued that conflict is an embedded element of life. There can be no life, in this case, proper life so defined, without disagreements, without conflicts. It's not just possible, unless we want to deceive ourselves. But what's important is that we all accept the responsibility of managing these conflicts if and when they happen or occur. That is the responsibility. You manage them to the extent that you don't allow them to lead to total breakdown of law and order. That is very, very important to emphasize. A critical component of that is citizen education. Citizens must know their rights, and the assumption is that citizens are able to know their rights through proper civic education. When you know your rights, it's not just your rights alone, right? Because there is no right, as someone said, without its corresponding duty. There is no right without its limitation. It's not just okay for you to know your rights, but for you to know where your rights begin and where it ends, especially in relation to others. And that is critical. That is very, very important. Critical and very, very important. The spirit of patriotism is as well very important. What will make for a better Nigeria has the element of patriotism in it. We must be straightforward. We must place Nigeria over and above our own interest, especially primordial interest, and ensure that Nigeria survives. The survival of Nigeria becomes a responsibility for all of us. War is not it at all, because of its likely catastrophic consequences, and nobody pays for that. So what Nigeria desires is unity. Unity between among its or her peoples. That's what Nigeria desires. Unity allows for understanding. Understanding allows for peace. Peace allows for prosperity. Prosperity allows for development, especially a development that can be sustained. These are important facts or points to emphasize. I want to thank you very much and pray for God's wisdom and guidance as you sojourn through the university. And as a father, I'm as well to advise that you manage yourself very well, be focused on your studies. Even when you have problems, try and discuss your problems with people around you. The university has a counseling center. You might as well decide to visit the counseling center so that things will work very, very well. I want to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. I bring the lecture to a good end. Thank you very much.